podcast. This is episode number 13, and I'm here with my good friend Bianca De Guzman.
Aloha.
What's up? Lucky number 13.
I know, I love that number.
You love that number? I was born on the 13th, so it is a pretty good number.
Two people I really like to hang out with are born on the 13th.
There you go. Yeah, before the podcast you mentioned, are you into superstitions? Are you?
Oh, no, I'm not into superstitions.
You're
I
not
asked
at
you
all?
about it.
No,
not
I'm
at
actually
all.
curious in regards to that, like subject in general.
Yeah, not at all, actually. I like listening about it. I like hearing the folklore about it and the storylines.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really believe in any of them. But it's really fascinating how certain stories really grasp people's mentalities and kind of just how they adapt their lives towards that.
All right. Like, so no psychics, no zodiac signs. No.
I've been to a psychic.
Right.
and then
Did they tell you what you wanted to hear or no?
Sorry?
Did they tell you what you wanted to hear or no?
They did, actually.
Okay.
But then I was just like, I feel like they just told me what I wanted to hear and nothing.
Okay,
nothing
so they
of
literally
actual
told you
substance.
what you wanted to hear.
There's nothing of substance.
No, I meant in terms of a positive reading. No, maybe?
No, I mean, it honestly felt like I paid $20 to get my ego stroked kind of thing. So I was just like, maybe this isn't for me.
Did they offer for you to come back? Or?
Yeah, they always do that.
Mm-hmm.
They
Or
even
your
said...
chakras misaligned, your energies were imbalanced?
They actually said I had a curse. And they were like, yeah, they said I had a curse. And that if I paid more, they could protect me from the curse. And I was just like, oh, no thank you. I'm fine.
Yeah, I had a buddy where he did the same thing. And then, like you mentioned before, if you are into that kind of stuff, then it becomes a rabbit hole. Because he did pay
money to be protected.
Yeah, to get protection and all these kind of things. But yeah, I guess if you believe in it enough, it will impact you. But if not, then...
It's a belief system. I don't want to say it's a religion, but it grasps you in a very similar fashion.
All right, so we're going to get to know you today. Who are you? What do you do? So we work together, just for the audience sake. So Bianca is your development production manager now.
Yes.
And you were a production manager before.
I was production manager before that. I've been in animation. Well, I went to college for animation. And originally, I wanted to be an artist. To be specific, I wanted to be a comic book artist, and I figured that animation with the whole storytelling procedure, draftsmanship would be the best way to go through it. And then during college, it just so turns out that my strength was in people and communication and management. So when I graduated college, my professors got me into my first studio, which is Guru. They told me to go into production, a job that I didn't know actually existed. So when I did that, I worked on Paw Patrol Season 1 and Season 2, and a lot of people know Paw Patrol at this point now because it's
blown up and all
it's gone insane.
Worldwide.
Oh yes, I have a lot of friends with kids and their kids. They basically use Paw Patrol as a way to bribe their kids to do things. Be like, you can watch Paw Patrol if you do this, and I'm just like, wow, it's got such a strong power. So in any case, looking for the next step in my career, I moved into art because I wanted to do feature. That was something I had not done before. But then I didn't have the best experience at ARC, so I wanted to move up as well. So when an opening started at IB, thankfully I had some really great connections, and then I got the job that I wanted, which is to move up. And then now I'm working on development, which is also kind of a brand new title for me. And the fun part about it is the initiation of the project. So it's a lot more creative, it's a lot more building up relationships, and I'm still really grasping that aspect.
It's the wild, wild west.
It is the wild, wild west.
In comparison to like proper production.
Yeah, because there's no real start and end. It's mostly is it working? If yes, then go here. If no, then go here.
Right.
Yeah.
So did you always know you were going to be in this industry, like in general?
Yeah,
like
since I was 13. Pretty
since
much.
you were 13. And then you went to Sheridan?
No, I went to Seneca actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know Chris?
Rosacos?
Yeah,
We went to, we
you went to school the same year or
not same year. He was a year younger, or in the class 1 year before. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you've known him for a while.
For a long time.
Yeah, I had him on the podcast yesterday. Yeah, today's Monday, right? Yeah, yesterday. Today's on Sunday. I had him in. Well, no, that's dope. So you've been in the industry for 6 years now, right? 5, 6 years, I want to say.
No, closer. So, maybe 8, actually.
Really?
No, yeah, more. 8. Because I started in 2012.
Oh,
yeah,
gotcha.
That's right.
How does it feel to be in the industry for this long? Are you in a position where you envisioned yourself from the get-go, or where were your expectations, and where are you now in regards to those expectations?
To be honest with you, I've changed my trajectory a little bit, because after watching kind of like what the next steps are, so then I was just like, I want to get into, I wanted to be a production manager. So then I looked into that, and that was really fun. And then when I looked at line producing, I was just like, I'm not sure if that's where I want to go specifically, because, like I said, the project usually does have a start and an end, and once you know what's everything in between, the devil then becomes the devil is in the details at that point. So what I did right now is I did a bit of a side leap towards development, and so that to me is really new, and that's a decision that I was interested in last year. And so the growth on this path, from what I understand, is a lot more organic. But what I really wanted to know more about this side of things is really how to produce original content from the very beginning, from the inception of the idea. Because I know how to produce content the moment somebody hands you the money and hands you the project and hands you kind of like the deadline. But anything before that is like just brand new information to me.
Yeah, no, the reason I ask is because I've noticed, myself included, and a whole bunch of other people, when we get into the industry, we have this vision of where we want to go in terms of like what the creative goals are, or like where you want to be in terms of position. And even for myself, like the first few years I was in, like the aim was more so to get full time. Like that was the goal, and then from that it turned into okay, now I'm like a modeling lead or whatever. Then it turned into like a rigging position.
Right.
Then it turns into like a general, like a development thing, but it's like, or like opening up your own studio eventually. Well, all these things kind of shift around, right? Where we have like this vision of what our end goal is, but when you experience the studio for what it is, and that the animation industry in general, it's crazy how things kind of shift. So for you, you want to be an artist when you started, and now you're a development production manager, which manages schedules, timelines, and like budgets and all that kind of stuff, which is a pretty crazy side step, right?
Yeah.
But you're still in the industry, which is dope.
Exactly. And then now I'm kind of heading back towards, in my opinion, I'm heading back towards the more creative side, because a lot of it is really hearing the original ideas and really growing the story and making sure that it's what the market wants, sort of thing. So it's a really big mix of the artistic side and the business side. So that's like, going through this process, I was just like, that's a very interesting thing that I used to avoid when I was an artist, and then when I was in production, it wasn't also something that I was paying attention to too much.
Dope. So, as a person, you're one of the few people that I know that's always, and I mentioned this to you a while back too, you're very jovial, positive, and enthusiastic no matter what the situation is.
Sometimes it's so awkward.
That's the thing, sometimes where things are very dry and cold, you're still enthusiastic and optimistic no matter what the sudden environment is. What's your secret?
What's my secret?
Yeah, like how do you stay so jovial and bubbly?
That's a good question, actually. So,
like, does it run in your family? Like, is it a genetic
thing? It doesn't really run in my family. Oh, okay. I don't think so, at least. But what it is, I cannot think of negative. I just can't be negative. It's a hard thing for me to do. So when other people become negative or when they complain about things, I actually have a hard time figuring out how they get to that conclusion immediately. Because in my mind, I'm like, there's either one, always a solution, or the problem is not as bad as you think it is, and all that really does is clouds your judgment.
Right.
So
did you always have this approach in terms of how you process things on a mindset level?
not always.
Okay.
Not.
So what was
I
the
did it
catalyst
when I was in college.
So what was the catalyst that led you to start thinking in an introspective manner?
So we're gonna get a little personal.
Up to you if you want to dive into these subjects. Cool.
Oh
If
yeah,
not,
we
not a
totally
problem.
can.
All right.
I think that I've always been introspective, but I had a point where it was towards the negative and cynical side of life.
Okay.
So, and then what I learned was it wasn't really helping me get anywhere. So throughout high school, I was at a depression. My parents found out about it, and then my guidance counselor was all like, you should all get family therapy and stuff like that. They put me actually in anger management. I was in anger management in high school because I was destructive. And I learned that I had a passive way of managing my anger where when things happen, I keep it within myself. And so that's when I realized that I was very introspective. Now, putting a spin on that, I learned that in order to get this negative energy out, I used art as an outlet. And then what that did was it made me productive. And then when I applied for animation school, I found it really fun to just make things and just make things happen. And then I started really getting along with my peers, because then at that point I was really honing my outward, my personality, and like just being a lot more open,
comfortable in your own skin.
being more comfortable, being more open, but also trying to keep a certain level of professionalism, and so towards the end, I really think that a lot of my growth happened during college.
Okay.
And during the first, and at that point, I was just really into it. I was just very much into growing myself. And then once I honed that healthy level of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Management of.
It's like positive thinking versus negative thinking, like a healthy level.
That balance.
Yeah, creating the balance.
Okay.
I started looking into stress management, and I learned that the best thing to do is to stay healthy. So then I was just like, eat healthy, work out, exercise, learn more about yourself, read, meditate. I mean, I don't meditate that much, but...
Okay, so let's dive into that in terms of, so when you started going on that journey where you're like, all right, I need to change things. In terms of your diet, exercise, all like that, where did you start?
That part started at the age of 24, I believe, 23, 24, and that was because I was working too much. So then what happened was, even though I was being very productive and I was having a great time doing that, it was actually affecting my health. To the point that my cells became abnormal, and then when I went to see a doctor, they said that I had to get screened. And so every 6 months, actually in the beginning, I had to be screened every 3 months to make sure that the abnormal cells didn't become cancerous, because I have cancer in my family. So then I was just like, okay.
So that was a direct result of stress?
I believe so, because there was nothing else I was doing other than... Yeah, there was nothing else I could think of that could potentially go into that. So ever since then, I was just like, well, that wasn't really worth it. Let's start focusing on keeping healthy. I mean, this was kind of like I was working 60 hours or more, 60 to 80 hours, and purely just working.
Jeez.
If it wasn't that, then I was dating. So it was just one or the other. But then I started putting in being healthy, and then I started with running. I found running meditative. And that was really fun. But after doing a marathon, I was just like, okay, I don't think this is for me. So then I actually hired a personal trainer to kind of help me with the physical stuff, but with the whole nutrition, there's a lot of information out there, so I just did a lot of research on YouTube.
Right. The internet is full of abundant information in that regard.
Yes.
Do you have any people that you, so when you started reading as well, I'm assuming during that time, self-development?
I did. Yeah, self-development, 4-hour work week. I don't know when or how I ended up picking up the 4-hour work week, but I just did. Oh, actually, I remember now. Somebody sent me an interview between Tim Ferriss and the Iceman.
Wim Hof.
Wim Hof, thank you. And it was a very great interview. And I was listening to Tim Ferriss, and I thought that he was a great interviewer. So then I dove more into Tim himself, and then found that he had multiple books. So I actually picked up the 4-hour work week, loved it. So I picked up his other books.
So you've read all of them? 4-Hour Chef and
4-Hour Chef,
Body.
4-Hour Body. I own the 4-Hour Chef, but I actually haven't dove in. The whole point of the book is how to learn, is really about how to learn. So I use it as a reference. It's mostly really a reference book. The 4-Hour Body, I do the same thing. I only flip to the pages that I kind of need to, if I need a reset.
It's relatable to whatever life situation that you're in.
Exactly. And the 4-Hour Work Week is a good read, generally speaking, on just how to rethink the way we do things.
And then that becomes like a progressive, exponential thing where you start developing these skills, and then you realize that your life is becoming more and more enjoyable.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you just turn into this bubbly, vibrant person.
But that's the thing, it's just
that's the secret.
I'm reading.
You got it.
Yeah, because it just, I guess it goes full circle. You're just like, I'm going to help myself.
That's dope, because a lot of times when someone sees an individual and like yourself, like very jovial, you're like, okay, this person must have always been like that, like in terms of how they carry themselves. But they don't realize that we're very relatable in the sense that, like, for example, when you have anxiety, like depression, all that kind of stuff, people isolate themselves and they feel like they're the only ones experiencing those type of emotions. And then when they see someone that is very outgoing and social and not like introverted and like to themselves and contained and not expressing their emotions, depressing everything and being depressed, is like they brush those type of people off. But then these type of conversations are important in the sense where it makes people open their eyes and realize that not everybody goes through like ups and downs and like trials and tribulations. How you come out of that kind of stuff depends on the person and your circumstances, but it is possible, right? And as you mentioned that yourself, like you, like that surprised me, right? Like I wouldn't have guessed, but even I had gone through a similar situation, and I'm starting to realize that the people that are the most grounded, intellectual, like happy, like easygoing, are the ones who have suffered quite a bit or have gone through like mental turmoil and come out of it. So that's pretty dope.
No, I totally agree.
Cool stuff. So you started reading Tim Ferriss stuff, you got into growth and development. So what would you say the biggest influence would be in terms of like health, fitness, reading? Like what are the key components, like which books per se? Like
which books?
Like if you were to give someone a formula of like, okay, here's your package of the get well,
That's a tough one.
Get out of the hole soon.
That's a tough one because I stopped or I quit giving unsolicited advice. I used to give unsolicited advice during the learning process because I get so excited.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah. And
but then you realize not everybody wants to hear that shit.
Exactly. And then so my new thing is I basically started just writing it for myself, and once I'm ready I would share it. But
do you journal?
Yeah, I journal every day.
Every day?
Yeah.
Do you journal emotions or
both.
Like goals and aspirations, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I have 6 categories that I find is important to me. So when I become emotional, let's say at work, when I think that my ego is acting up, I write it down immediately because at that point I don't want to do anything, so I have to release that feeling. And I heard this in a podcast. I listened to so many podcasts, but I'm pretty sure it's a Tim Ferriss one, where they said that you have to materialize it so that it actually escapes you, because otherwise you're just keeping
retaining it and turns into a mind loop.
Exactly.
You constantly go over and over.
Yeah.
It is very interesting because I experienced that for myself too. Like every time I write, and I journal as well as much as I can, even in terms of manifesting things that I want to execute as soon as I write it down, it happens the next day. It's
Oh,
like you
wow.
reprogram your subconscious. Like in terms of planning. Like if I was to be
Okay.
like, tomorrow I'm going to do A, B, C, and D, even though if I had not planned it, I wouldn't have done
Got it.
or executed on it, because it's like you're almost telling your subconscious is like, this is what we need to do tomorrow.
Exactly.
But it's interesting how you can program the mind on that level, right? And then it's another thing that's interesting, and I want to touch on, is that you mentioned ego. What do you
Yes.
think that entails? Like, how do you cope with that? And what do you think it is and where it stems from?
I definitely think, well, everybody has it, and a lot of kind of I don't know the word for it, but there's this goal where you want to become egoless, and it's is it in Buddhism? I'm not even sure.
Well, that's when you reach enlightenment and oneness with everything, right?
Thank you. So, what it is, and what I realized is that when I'm filled with ego, I don't learn, and I don't like that. So then what happens is I start going through a backward spiral. So when I'm not learning, then I'm not progressing. So then I start getting upset, and then it just becomes a backward spiral of that. So I read this book called Awareness, and I know that your favorite book is The Power of Now.
One of my favorite.
Yes.
Yeah. That's up there.
It's up there, yes.
Yeah.
I haven't read The Power of Now, but I did read Awareness, which is pretty short, by Anthony de Mello. It's a pretty short book, and it's by Anthony de Mello, who's a Jesuit priest. And when I read that book, he always just said the line, awareness, awareness, awareness. And I didn't really understand what that meant until I read the part that you have to watch yourself. And I also questioned, how do I do that?
My eyes are right here.
I know. I was just like, how am I going to watch myself?
Okay.
And then I remember Jordan Peterson also saying that whenever he caught himself doing something that he didn't like, or even lying,
right,
he would trace back and be like, no, that's not true. So first of all, that's a certain level of awareness, and I don't know how you get there, but I think the fact that, for example, for me, that when I catch my ego acting up, and realize, and looking at the big picture, being like, they're not criticizing me as a person, they're criticizing what I need to improve on.
Right.
So I'm not supposed to take that seriously. I'm supposed to, and I should learn from that. And so I write down the negative feelings of like, you suck, or you should have done this better. I get rid of that feeling, and then I just move on to what is the actionable step? What's the next step to do this particular thing better? Right.
So that makes sense. So you're releasing all of the pent up thoughts that are arising, and so I kind of do what you're doing, except for the negative part.
Oh, okay.
I just be like, all right, what do I need to do to improve? But I can understand you releasing the negative vibes just to get it out of the system.
And I think for you've probably practiced that out, because when I was listening to you and Jason talk, you guys talked about producing every single day.
Right.
When you produce every single day, and I'm not sure if this ever even happened to you really, when you think about it could be better,
right,
but you just push it out.
Right.
That's still yourself practicing. You're still practicing a way of...
It's just detaching from your...
Exactly.
You're not identifying with what you're putting out there.
Exactly.
And most people, when they personalize themselves with whatever it is, that a career or a project or anything like that, it's more difficult, right? Because then you want to perfect it, and you want to portray yourself in the best light possible.
Of course.
But no one's perfect.
Yeah.
So when you realize and crack that code in regards to like, I'm just gonna do this the best I can, and then I can learn and grow, and then things become a lot easier just to execute from scratch. And that's why there's so many people that have all these great, amazing ideas, but they never initiate because they fear that they're not going to be good enough. And I've covered this in other podcasts as well. It's like you just have to like suck it up and just do it.
No, exactly.
But it is interesting observing the mind and the ego on that level, and then kind of, because you can have contradicting thoughts, but then when you step outside of that, you're like, who's in charge of what? Like, what is this thought process?
Yes.
Like, who's making the calls, and like, why is there resistance? And it's like the monkey brain versus the conscious brain.
Exactly.
Which is very interesting, right?
And it's funny that you say the monkey brain. I actually think that's the human side.
The instinctual primal.
The instinctual primal. Thank you. And then when people say, when people question what does it mean to be human, it's like it's a very
eat, sleep, make babies.
That's just the primal part. But
that's what it means to be human.
But when we think about it in terms of growth, let's think about it as people, growth of society and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that we ourselves have declared is moral value and what's valuable.
But even that is questionable, right? It's based off of your environment,
based on your
society, culture, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So if you have to take a raw human and just like be like, okay, but that's the thing. It's like, where do you draw the line in terms of what's the right way of raising someone, right?
Exactly. Because if you were just take a primal person, then it's all about us and self-preservation and protecting ourselves, survival. Exactly. So then it's no longer the sharing community, and without the sharing community, then we won't be in the situation we're in now, where we all live richer than the kings of the 16th century or even 100 years ago.
But at the same time, we're suffering on a mindset level, right?
On a mindset level.
There's too much input. Communities do exist, but people feel lonelier than ever because of social media and expectations and projecting into the future and worrying about the past and always feeling like there's a lack of. And
that is the not living in the moment aspect of it. Because then when you think too much about the past or have anxiety over the future, I can see how that stunts people. And then I can see how that becomes kind of like a downward spiral of like, how do I enjoy the now? How do I get rid of this feeling of anxiety?
A lot of people that know me, in the past more so than now, I would rant about the present moment so much. I'm like, there's only now. Like, nothing else matters. And they get annoyed, but like, to put it simply, like, if you're worrying about the past and you're projecting yourself in the future, you're going to be autopilot throughout life. Like, when you boil it down, there is nothing else,
and you let life happen to you instead of you living it.
Yeah, you're reacting to everything.
Exactly.
That's what happens, right? So if you're not aware of like the current moment that you're in, even if you have whatever it is that you want, let's say you get rich, you have a yacht, you have beautiful women, whatever, you're still gonna be so caught up in your head and not present. You won't even be able to enjoy what you have. And that's what it means to be present. Like, even in this situation, like appreciating everything, taking in everything, and you have that sense of like bliss and euphoria, and then you can take action in terms of things that you enjoy doing, right? Rather than subconsciously sleepwalking through life on a day-to-day basis. But it's hard to do because there's so many distractions. There's all this noise. And
that's true. That's why I actually am currently trying to detox a little bit on the
social media tip?
Not even just social media. I mean, I'm not that active on social media anymore. I wanted to try to be more active because I wanted to be a part of a community, like let's say the fitness community. But I guess I'm just not really into it. It's a lot of work.
It is.
To be part of a community is a lot of work. Yes. But what I'm referring to is creating a silence. So, you go to the gym, you listen to music. If you listen to music, or you listen to a podcast when you're traveling, or somebody's texting you and you respond back. We have, on my phone alone, I have 5 apps that are messenger apps, like instant messaging. And sometimes when I see more than 5 messages, I don't even want to look at it because it becomes overwhelming.
Tedious. It's like a job almost. Yeah.
Yes. So what I've actually done to quiet my life, and I know I have a feeling not a lot of people do this, I have no notifications. The only notification I have is the number of messages that's on top of an app. But what I also did is I hid all of my apps to the second page of my phone, so that whenever I turn on my phone, I don't see anything.
See it.
Yeah, I don't see anything.
That's smart.
So these are kind of small things to quiet my life. I have rules where I don't look at my phone or a screen when I'm in my bedroom. So no screens in my bedroom. I also have, what else is there? Yeah, I just basically created a lot of rules to make sure that I'm constantly present with what I'm doing, because otherwise it's overwhelming.
Right, there's too much input. Have you done anything like the sensory deprivation tanks or?
No, I've always wanted to try it, actually.
You should try it out.
Yeah.
I think you'll enjoy it. Aside from that, meditation and stuff, did you dive into any of that? Did you read into any?
I read into it, and I know a bit about the science and how it develops your brain, but personally I just haven't gotten there yet. I haven't really found the method that I like. I've tried Headspace. Yeah,
Right.
I tried Headspace. The breathing is fine. Like I can do like
Breath exercises.
yeah, breath exercises. Inside a sauna is the best, in my opinion.
It's when your nostrils catch on fire.
Oh,
I've tried that before. I'm like, this is burning my insides.
I mean, maybe I haven't done it for that long because it's my favorite place.
Okay.
But I personally find my workouts like a meditation.
No,
yeah.
I absolutely agree. And when I go to the gym, it's like my sanctuary.
Oh, me too.
I have my headphones in, and then if people socialize once in a while, it's alright. But sometimes people get carried away, and they're like butterflies, social butterflies. That's when I'm like, you're interrupting my sanctuary
got
time.
it.
It's like, leave me the fuck alone. I need to lift some weights, get those endorphins going.
Exactly.
Get it clear.
The breathing, because you have to breathe in deep.
Yeah, it's
you have to hold
essentially
it
a meditation.
It is.
Like if you break
It's a
it down,
moving
like
meditation.
a moving meditation forces you to breathe. You're stretching. You're getting endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, all those good stuff.
Exactly.
But you can get addicted to that as well.
Oh, I didn't even know
You
that.
didn't know that?
No.
So if you go too much to the gym, then you get addicted to that thing. Because even for me, sometimes I go 6-7 days a week.
Yeah.
And the days that I don't go, I'm like, I feel like something's missing. But it's because my body's used to that.
Oh,
It's like,
got it.
But it's a good addiction at the end of the day. I don't
think
mind.
so.
Yeah, as long as you don't overwork yourself, I think it's fine.
On my days off, or when I don't go to the gym, I do a walk. And I love walking around the city because it's an opportunity to see what's happening in Toronto and how people are flocking into it and stuff like that.
Which areas of the city do you usually walk around?
Usually I'm
Like just random?
Queen West.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
Queen
split.
West is my favorite. And then Yorkville.
It's a fancy part of town.
Oh, I love Yorkville. It's just so nice. It's so pretty.
All right, so getting back to, okay, so what books would you recommend for someone that's like, I'd say getting into mindfulness and I know that you're also into stoicism, which is pretty interesting, right? Because that's usually how I carry myself in terms of just emotions and how I tackle things in life, and I've heard that you're into that as well.
Oh, I am. I found Seneca, also again through Tim Ferriss, Letters of Seneca, Letters from a Stoic, and that's actually a very great first read. To be honest with you, I don't know how other people will react if they're not into the Stoic mindset, because I think I've always been into the Stoic mindset. If before books, if we even just go through animated content or movies, you would see characters that are the strong-willed, the hero strong-willed characters. For me, it came in the manga form called Hunter x Hunter, where the main character is this 12-year-old boy, and he's egoless. He's all about learning, and he finds the fun in the process. So actually, I would often think about him as kind of like a source of how he thinks about. I would think about how he thinks about things, and use it because all he really wants is to get better at his craft, to help his friends, and to learn, really. And that was really fascinating. But his philosophy, without even saying it, is a Stoic philosophy. And so when I started reading into Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, I was just like, this is really connecting to me. But to be honest with you, I can see how some people will not connect to it because it's not the most comfortable.
In what sense?
In sense of, well, sorry, when I say comfortable, I mean it's not the most
applicable to their life
Not
situation.
applicable. No, not applicable. I say elegant. It's not like a rich lifestyle. Let's put it that way.
It's okay, simple, basic.
It's very simple. It's very, I'm going to do the hard thing because I want to train myself for hardships.
Right.
Sort of thing. So I know some people don't want to do that. And I say this because I would talk about it. And we have one friend who would say, Bianca, I live a comfortable life. Why would you do that to yourself?
But then you look at them deep in their eyes, like, are you really that comfortable?
Yeah.
And then you'll notice, you'll be like, okay, things can be a little bit better.
Yeah.
So, no, when it comes to those kind of people in general, like, same thing, like, even in regards to what we spoke about earlier, if they're kind of seeking some type of growth in a specific aspect of life, then you can be like, hey, check this out, or have you looked into this before? But for those that you can see that they're struggling or suffering and things could be better and they try to justify it, in my mind, that's like a sign of just like laziness to a certain degree. Where it's like, no, why would you not want to optimize? It's more of like
That's
if you were to give someone a pill and be like, okay, if you take this pill, you're gonna be shredded, fit, healthy. They would take it. They would take it.
Yeah. Yes.
But then if you're like, okay, this is the program you need to follow, they'll be like, oh, fuck that.
I have heard of that.
So right there, it's a mindset thing, right? And then that's what differentiates like great and like ambitious people and successful people from those that are like kind of coasting through life. And I feel like they're half asleep, half awake, to be honest, in my opinion. I could be wrong. Like, if they're genuinely happy, like, some people have different morals and values in terms of what brings them happiness, but a lot of times you can see that they want things to be better, but they just don't want to put the work in. It's like more of a willpower, discipline mindset thing.
Got
right?
it.
So that's the analogy I usually tell them, and I'm sure you've probably heard it somewhere. It's like, if I gave you a shortcut, you'd want it. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But then if I break down the grandiose, elaborate, long-term, non-short-term gratification method, it's going to frustrate you, and you're going to be like, I don't want to do that.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah, because honestly for me, the way I've always seen is whenever I did the hard thing, it always rewarded me with something great. So, and I would always get really into the process of it. It was, I guess that is what you say, living in the moment. And it was very fulfilling. Right. So it's kind of just like, it's not always like that. It's not every day like that. But when it does happen, and I always try to get there.
Like the flow state, you mean?
Yeah, the flow state. I think that is what it's called. I haven't really...
It's like Satori and flow state. That's what they call it. But it's when time is non-existent. That's right. And you're just so present, and in the moment, you're just executing. Yeah, you just do. You just make. You just produce. And in a way that also is relaxing. And by the end of the day, you're just like, oh, that was a good day. Right. Like, no regrets. But see, you live a balanced lifestyle in the sense where you do, I'm pretty sure you have a proper sleep schedule. I do. So all your human basic 101 needs are met. Yes. And you need to cover all those bases in order to reach a state that will get you into that flow state. So even for me, if I don't sleep well, or I have so much more resistance, it's so much more difficult to get into that mindset, right? It's true. But then you realize some people are in that headspace all the time. And then they're associating their stresses and their anxieties and whatever difficulties they have to external things rather than internal things. Exactly. And then to those people, you just want to like shake them and be like, wake up.
Or go to bed or sleep.
You need a nap.
Yeah, exactly. Reset your mind, please.
You need a nap, okay? Stop drinking 5 coffees a day and telling me you can't go to sleep at night.
Oh my goodness.
Why do you do this to yourself?
So that's the thing. You know, for so long, we've done the science on the best, like in terms of sleeping, in terms of eating, how to keep our bodies functional at its best. And I always questioned why people wouldn't do that. Why they wouldn't do what's best for themselves.
What feels good in general, right?
Yeah, it does. Because when we were younger, we could do a lot of things. Like we could stay up late and still do the exam the next day, or or party all night and still get to that deadline sort of thing. But at some point, when you listen to your body, you just can't do it anymore. So you have to really start taking care of yourself. And so I basically start to question why people wouldn't put themselves first.
Because they're unconscious.
And that's the thing. And it's just like, it becomes a downward spiral for them. And when I watch that, and so this is me being introspective, looking at people in this industry that have been in this industry longer than I have, and older people. And even listening to my parents, when I just watch them, I'm like, why wouldn't you take care of yourself first?
I remember asking you at work one day, I'm like, why is it that some people are so intelligent yet they don't take care of their meat vehicle? Like, they're super smart in a specific area, and it's like, but they don't fuel their body in a way where it'll be optimized. But then in all other regards, in terms of what they're doing, they're like very intelligent. And then it's like, yeah, I'm addicted to sugar. And it's like, I can't. It's like, yeah, but shouldn't you fix that? It's like, no, I'll deal with it later. I have diabetes. I'm going to get diabetes. It's like, my friend, why you do this to yourself? Come on.
Like,
it's like, you're so smart, but at the same time.
Why?
Or even fitness-wise. And that's the thing. It just comes down to an impulsive. It's the monkey brain too, right? They're more prone to, like, a specific aspects of life, and their judgments are based off of the monkey brain and the impulsive desires. But training your willpower, discipline, and all that kind of stuff is not easy. But then, as you mentioned before too, the rewards that you get and the satisfaction and fulfillment that comes with
so much better.
Coming over that resistance, and that I don't want to do that, or I want that donut or dessert so badly, but I'm gonna tell myself no. And then knowing that you have control over specific aspects of life in that situation leads to, it correlates to other aspects of life where you make other decisions that are catered towards growth and self-development, right?
Yeah.
And then you don't go backwards into, like, becoming lazy. Because, like, as soon as you have whatever, a donor or whatever, you become lethargic. Because you're lethargic, you won't execute on a specific thing. You won't go as hard at the gym, or you'll skip the gym, and then it's like, why? It's not worth it.
No, exactly.
But with experience, I guess, if you have that introspective mindset, you can kind of dissect everything and break it down.
And then you also have to, well, at least I do this all the time, is when I do fall, which happens, like when I injured myself 4 months ago, I was really upset and I couldn't do all the exercises that I love to do. I had to take a little bit of a break. I had to think about this as if I had to think about my progress like a stock market chart. And basically progress is not linear. There's always going to be divots. So not every day is going to be perfect, but as long as you always strive to move it up. And I'm going to say this, maybe the stock market since 2008, let's just say that. Maybe not right now, but you know.
So in life, there's peaks and valleys. There's ups and downs.
Yes,
so when you're down, you can only go up from there.
Yes.
And
just don't stay down, you know?
Yeah, you can make decisions.
Yes.
And then as I grow older as well, like, I'm starting to realize that more and more. Like, even when you're having a bad day and you're not feeling so good, realizing that it's not permanent.
That's right.
It'll
Reset.
pass. Yeah.
Like,
It's
look forward to the next day.
What can you do to change how you feel? If you can't do anything, just realize that it's not something that's going to be
that you can control.
Reoccurring. If it is, then you have bigger problems. You need to look at things from a bigger picture.
That is true. Yeah, I can't really speak for things that go downward spiral if it's outside of your element. But if it's within your control, then focus on the things that you can do better for yourself. Don't focus on the things that is outside of your control necessarily. So it's really, and I don't want to be mean about this, but there's actually that thing where sometimes you have to fire your friends if they're not the best for you.
Yeah, well, if they're not on your path in terms of you being the best version of yourself and they're bringing you down, then that's another thing too. It's like you shouldn't take that kind of stuff personal, right? Because everybody is on their own journey, like trying to level up, and the ones that will stick with you through the ups and downs, those are the key,
the gems,
the core group of friends, and I have like a pretty intimate group of friends in that regard. But yeah, when you're young, you're like, hey, these are my best friends.
Exactly.
Like, and then you have to like grow out of that circle, right? Sometimes they prevent you from doing that.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. I'm getting like flashbacks now.
Like well, not even just that, but also because when you want to grow into the person that you want to become, you have to realize that you're going to make sacrifices that you're currently doing. So for me, it was a lot of partying.
That was your sacrifice, partying?
My sacrifice was because I became an extrovert in my early 20s. I really enjoyed going out all the time. Okay. A lot. And then, but it wasn't giving me enough of a chance to be introspective, to look into myself. And then sometimes in the beginning, I would skip my workouts to go out and have drinks. So then what I decided was that my well-being is more important, because obviously if I'm happy, then I project better. So what I did was I reverse engineered my schedule, where I did everything that was important at the beginning of my day, so that at the end of the day, I would either one, be too tired, or two, think about my next day and being like, how can I set my next day up for success, so that I power through things better. Right.
But at the same time too, like if let's say you were to go out, like if you were to accomplish specific things that you wanted to earlier in the day, as you mentioned before, you become more like vibrant because you feel like you deserve, like you've done the work, now it's time to play.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus being like, fuck, I didn't do what I need to do, and I'm gonna get drunk and like party.
That's right.
And I'm gonna feel like shit the next day, like, and then it's.
But that's the thing. It's like I didn't get what I needed to do. So then I'm gonna go party so that I don't dwell on the thing I didn't do. But then the next day, you start dwelling on the thing that you didn't do.
And it's 5 times worse because
exactly.
I don't understand that concept of life. But everybody has to experience it for themselves, right? Like as Wim Hof says, like learning is experiencing. So when it comes to all aspects of life, like whether it's meditation, I'm gonna push you to get into that, like breathing and all that kind of stuff. Everybody is unique in terms of how they experience things, right? And then that will alter your trajectory even more so, because it's very important in terms of like I know so many people when they come to me, they're like, oh, let's do a breathing exercise, and they don't know what to expect, and then they try to ask, like, okay, what happens when you do? I'm like, listen, let's just do one. Afterwards, you'll see how you feel. Yeah. And then as soon as they do it, they're like, what the fuck, like. But everybody's experience is different, right? Because we all have our own perceptions of reality, our own levels of stress and like anxieties in our life. So you can't be like, this is the general rule of thumb for everyone. So even in regards to stoicism and mindset and all that kind of stuff, same rule applies. But yeah, to those who kind of seek and like they're curious, they'll gravitate towards you. Yeah. And then you can be like, okay, here's what you need to do. And then I mentioned this in another podcast too, the 3 books that I recommend, like Power of Now is the first one, 4 Agreements, and The Mastery of Love.
And The Mastery of Love?
The Mastery of Love.
Oh, fun.
It's not like love. It's more like it's more like self-love, respect, not being selfish in a way where you put yourself first, but in doing so, like you're able to love someone properly, right?
But that's exactly it, because that's self-respect, self-love, then you basically share what you have because you have an abundance of it. Right. When you're depleted, like you need to, one, seek help if you absolutely need to. You know, have that persistence to want to get out of the darkness. And again, only when you have reached a certain level of self-confidence, self-love, that's when you share. Because otherwise, it's just going to eat up at you, and you're just going to go back down again. You just have
resent for everything.
Oh, there's that too. Yes, exactly.
And I know people like that too, and it's unfortunate. But you try to like kind of express to them, it's like, but that's the thing. Consciousness in general, there's so many layers of. It's like infinite onion is what I call it. You keep peeling, and the deeper you go, the more intense you feel these things. But at the same time, you have a deeper understanding of how things work. So same thing. Like when you go into self-love mode and everything, like you will love deeper, but you will hurt deeper as well because you're more in tune with your emotions, right? So there's a give and a take. But to that, like even in that regard, like I'll tell someone, it's like, okay, would you want to experience those things in the first place? Just know that there's a duality to that as well, and that's okay, but it'll pass. So same thing, like raining, sunshine, night, day.
Exactly.
Heartbeat goes up, down. Stock markets go down, up. But yeah, so what projections do you have for the future? Like are you going to continue doing self-growth and development? Like,
oh yes.
What are your plans for the next? Like, what's your next steps in terms of like how you're going to approach everything?
Oh yeah. So I actually have like a 6-month goal right now, which is to hone my soft skills when it comes to business more. But I also, on the side, want to really dive into work a lot more. So what I've been doing is I've reached a pretty good level of balance in terms of living life and work, but I want to reshift my focus into work again and really diving into this part of production development, because I know that original content and creativity is just, it's a bestseller right now. A lot of people are buying, a lot of broadcasters and networks are buying original content to you know, showcase out there.
Right.
And that to me is a lot of learning already. I just bought a book that I have to basically write down what my next steps are. I haven't really I guess the word is dove into my schedule for my next 6 months, but that is my next step.
So do you always break down everything down in 6-month chunks, or? Yeah,
I learned that from the 4-hour work week, because if you have a goal that's longer than that, and I totally agree with it, it becomes, if you don't narrow your goals down to something that you're capable of finishing within 6 months, it becomes too vague, and then you kind of don't see the results. So then it's harder to convince yourself.
If you do it in a shorter time period, you just get stressed and burnt out.
But you don't make it too big. So you basically have to figure out what, and this is the hard part, is the planning part. You have to figure out what's doable in 6 months based on the research and the resources. Sometimes I have a tendency to dream too big, and then I have a 30-year plan. Jeez.
Broken down into 6-month chunks?
No. I have a 30-year plan that's literally just broken down in terms of, I guess every year I basically would put like, it'd be good to have this, it'd be good to have that. But my 30-year plan is not set in stone. So from the macro, I go dive in deeper. So my original plan for this year was to finish my project management. And I might still actually do that. I'm just having a little bit of an internal debate whether I want to, if that's actually valuable, versus honing in more on like the business soft skills and then learning more about the development process and really diving into work. So basically I'm using work as a form of homework. Right. Because there's so many things in Ontario that we have so many resources. Like literally, I can learn about funds. Like I can learn about how to fund a short if I wanted to hire artists to build a short and stuff like that. Ontario gives us funding for certain things like this. You just have to qualify. You just have to apply, and if you qualify, they'll give you money. And I'm just like, that's amazing stuff. Right. So there's a lot of these things that really feed into creating original content that I want to learn a lot more from, because I personally think that that's a stronger skill to have, because project management is general and it is a strong skill, but I guess it's not focused enough. a little too general. So that's why I'm shifting gears, and I only really decided that last month after I reached my other goal of finally learning how to drive. Like, that was a fear that I needed to get rid of. Conquered, yes. Like I started that with biking last year, and then finally got into the driving part. Because I know some people just really get into the driving part almost immediately, and I didn't, because I always believed the future cause of my death was through driving.
Jeez.
No, it was a childhood thing. The traffic in the Philippines wasn't that great, so.
So going back to your business versus management, and so what kind of advice would you give to someone who wanted to come into the industry and wanted to get into project management? I mean, the fact that you have a 30-year plan and break everything down to 6 months is a huge bonus, but...
It's not a 30-year plan that's broken into 6 months. You just take it 6 months by 6 months.
Oh, yeah, so you don't have...
Yeah, I don't have, like, I have a 30-year generalization of what, of what I want to do, and what I want to have, like a family and stuff like that.
Right. So in terms of the industry, though, like, what pointers would you give to someone who wanted to
that's
break into the industry and do what you're doing, per se?
That's a good question. Oh, communication would be the biggest one. And then when I say that, I mean just being clear, concise, finding exactly where your parameters are, what you're willing to accept versus what you're willing to step back away from. But also, and this is what I find is what happens with starting coordinators or production people, is that they can sometimes be harsh with artists, in terms of their language, because the mindset becomes all about the deliverable, but not about the team. So care about the team because the team gets it done, but also communicate to the team the importance and the value of the work, but also knowing your value yourself. Sometimes what I find, not sometimes, I'm going to say majority of the time, what I find with juniors is that they do undervalue themselves, and I totally understand why. It's a confidence thing, it's a getting started thing. But you have to know that, or you really have to understand what you have to offer, and hone that skill, develop yourself more, and communicate it effectively.
So project management skills, communication, just being a strong leader in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Like being able to manage a bunch of people. Dope.
Teamwork.
Yeah, so we're going to finish off this podcast in terms of, I usually ask like a general question at the end, but I'm going to ask you, so what, after all this, what encapsulate, like, towards the end of the podcast, I mean, like, what gets you up in the morning? What's that driving factor for you?
Oh, that's a good question. Like, because literally I get up in the morning, I'm like, oh, what a beautiful day. Yeah,
like, what's the ultimate goal for you, right? Because everybody has, like, a specific drive, right? And so when you wake up, what's the ultimate motive that gets you going to be like, all right, let's get this day started?
The ultimate motive. Give me a sample.
A sample
of yours, let's say.
So for mine, it's like when I wake up, it's like, all right, today is going to be another opportunity to become the strongest version of myself.
Got it.
And then at the same time, motivate, inspire other people in my vicinity and in my power to do so, right? So that's usually, proving to myself, all right, I can take it to the next step.
Okay.
Let's evolve.
That's what you meant. I thought you meant like something more material-ish in a way. But no, not. To that respect, I pretty much say a very similar thing to what you do. I basically say, Bianca, you're going to do your best today. This is when I look at the mirror.
This is a practice Bianca does. She looks in the mirror. So what is it? Self-affirmations? Positive affirmations?
I guess so, but also a reminder of what I could do better. So the beautiful thing about writing a journal is that you know how you reacted the day before, and then the next day you're able to course correct and figure out how to do it better that day.
Mm-hmm.
So I always start with, Bianca, do your best today. I do. I really do.
So
even
you talk
if
to
it's
yourself
mental.
in the third person.
Yeah, I
in
do.
your mind. Okay,
I
that's
do.
interesting. No, because when I think about it, it's like, do I do that? I'm like, no, not
You
really.
don't?
I usually just
Okay.
like self-talk, but not like, all right, Masood, you got this. But maybe, I don't know, I'll test it out, see how
Yeah,
that works. It's
look
like an
at-
advanced version of journaling. It's like you're talking to yourself
Just
from a
the-
super outside perspective.
Oh.
No, but that's what you're doing essentially, right?
Yes.
And like you're looking at yourself from the most
From-
broadest perspective, as if you're like, all right, Bianca, your higher self.
Like,
You get shit.
be like, Bianca, this is the person that you want to be. You want to be respectful. You want to be confident. You want to have a good knowledge base of what it is that you're doing. So,
Alright.
what are your next steps to get to those specific goals? And I'm just like, all right, that's it.
Alright, dope. Well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Oh, thank
we
you.
covered some pretty deep introspective subjects.
We did.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Peace.
Ciao, ciao.
For you.